Okay, welcome to the webinar today. We're having a look at diet and exercise and lifestyle, the truth behind all the weight loss nonsense. So you might have been struggling with your health for a little while. I hope today's presentation will give you a better idea of maybe what's going on with your metabolism, possibly some of the fibs you've been told in the past, and maybe a better path forward for you to get yourself the results that you want. So you can see from that diagram on the first page that there's a fair few things that you have to incorporate in terms of what your metabolism actually likes. There's your nervous system, Dr. Quiet, which is your rest and sleep patterns, whether you're digesting or eliminating properly. You've got Dr. Diet, what are you eating, when are you eating, all that sort of stuff. What are your hormones doing, your hormonal system. Dr. Movement, what are you currently doing for exercise and the like. Your musculoskeletal system, do you have any aches and pains, any scar tissue or anywhere, any past surgeries or anything like that. And Dr. Happiness, what you actually think of your life, your friends, your situation, your job, and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully the presentation will go through each one in turn, and we'll hopefully try and get you some answers on why things aren't currently working for you in regards to your health. So let's get started. Okay, so who am I and why should you trust me? Well, I'm a metabolic typing advisor. Probably doesn't mean much to you, but it's a little bit like being a nutritionist, except that we don't guess. We've got an accurate questionnaire that can determine exactly what foods you should be eating and what foods you should be avoiding. So this goes far beyond what a normal nutritionist practices in terms of fruits and vegetables. We don't know whether they're right for you, so we always metabolically type you first. On top of that, I'm a holistic lifestyle coach, so I get into your lifestyle, your toxins in your office and home, everything that's going to affect your body from the outside world and what happens to you on the inside once it's there. I'm also a CHEK practitioner, CHEK standing for Corrective Holistic Exercise Kinesiologist. That basically is just like a glorified personal trainer. We're not the bash and sort of crash type personal trainers. We don't take you to a park and absolutely wear you out for an hour. We look at how your body is designed to move, why it's not moving properly if it isn't, and then we design you a program that will get you twice the results in half the time. And the last thing I studied was a functional diagnostic nutritionist. That enables me to run specific labs on you to have a look inside your body and see what your hormones are doing, what your immune system's doing, whether you're digesting stuff, and how toxic you are, your toxicity levels. So all in all, we put those four principles together, or four teachings together, and we come up with basically a problem solver or a health detective. So it doesn't really matter what problem you have or what answers you'd like. We've got a wide range of knowledge, and we go about picking your life to bits in terms of diet, exercise and lifestyle through questionnaires and discussions and stuff like that, and we try and plot out a path for you that's actually going to get you results. So overall, I'm known as a health detective, trying to get you the results that you want. Okay, so how do 99% of people try and lose weight? Well, we all know that one. It's by cutting calories and exercising like crazy. Now, you might have done that in the past, you might have actually done it several times. The sad thing is that when you stop that sort of approach and you go back to your normal diet and lifestyle, you might even find that the weight comes back on, or you could actually even be more overweight than when you first started using that approach. So what happens in the background with your metabolism when you're following something like that? Well, firstly, it decreases your muscle mass and therefore your metabolic rate. Basically, the more muscles you have in your body, the more your metabolic rate is. The higher the temperature you want to sit at, the more easily it burns fuels, which is coming from your foods. So it's definitely not a wise idea to cut calories in regards to achieving your weight goals. On top of that, it disrupts your hormone levels. Now, we all know that hormones are a governing body in regards to your weight level, so the more balance your hormones are in, the more easier you will find it to lose weight. So it's very important not to follow cutting calories and exercising like crazy, because it generally just pisses off your hormones a little bit depending on what you're doing. It also increases insulin levels. Now, we're aware of like blood sugar irregularities, diabetes and the like. Now, most girls unfortunately tend to eat light. What I mean by that is they tend to eat towards the fruit and vegetables, thinking that will actually help them lose weight. They avoid stuff like saturated fats, meats and the like. But keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that fats are not your enemy. Sugars are. In fact, sugars have about 147 disastrous effects on your metabolism. You'll be able to see all 147 effects in one of my blogs if you go onto my website. Okay, now we know that insulin as well also stimulates your fat storing hormones. Okay, you might have heard of leptin, insulin, and all those. Well, they govern what exactly goes to storage in terms of fat and what doesn't. Now, excess sugars will go to store as fat every single time, so it's quite critical to work out what you actually should be eating. So keep in mind, if you've been using that past approach, cutting calories and exercising like crazy, and it hasn't worked for you, there's 4 factors there that will probably help you understand what was going on in the background in terms of what was happening to your body on the inside. So we don't tend to try and bash the weight off us with a stick. It always comes back and bites back. So it's an approach more of finding out what's right for you and achieving balance internally, and then the weight will just simply start to fade away. I've found that with most of my clients that have done this program. Okay, so on to the next one. It's a wise saying by this man that rowing harder doesn't help if the boat is headed in the wrong direction. So hopefully we're not going about getting a major drastic change in course, but we're just going to tilt the boat a few degrees and we'll eventually end up where you want to be. Okay, so rowing harder doesn't help if the boat is headed in the wrong direction. Okay, so there are no double-blind studies of what I'm about to tell you. You won't read it in a magazine, you won't see it on TV, or the #1 bestseller at your local bookstore. It's not being talked about. The reason's largely why is because there's not a lot of money in it. If I get you healthy and well, then that pretty much turns off the tap of how much money you're going to pay me in the future. I don't really mind that. I would rather you in a much better place health-wise and to educate you to a point where you actually don't need me. Okay, so unfortunately most of this information you see today will not be seen elsewhere. So it could be new to you, but please just open your mind to it. I'm sure a lot of it with the logical common sense behind it, you will come to the same conclusion. Okay, so what's really happening out there? Why is everyone getting fatter and sicker? Well, I think H.D. Urt in his book Masterful Persuasion stated it best. He stated that a little bit of nonsense repeated regularly for just 10 years can wipe out 100 years of truth. So you might remember your great-great-grandmother. She was telling you certain things about her old days, how they used to move, what they used to eat, and all that sort of stuff. Now, if you pick up modern day magazines like you.You or any of those ones, you'll quickly see a whole heap of nonsense. So if I tell you that nonsense for a good decade, that will pretty much wipe out all the decades previously of the useful information that perhaps your great-grandmother would have told you. So a little bit of nonsense repeated regularly will wipe out the truth. Okay, so this presentation and indeed our whole approach to health is getting you back to the truth, to actually what works. Okay, so that's a nice little saying to remember. Okay, so the other thing I always tell my clients when I first sit down with them is don't let your schooling get in the way of your education. What I mean by that is if we have a look at the examples of, say, just the food industry alone, there are approximately 1,500 scientists that work in the food industry. Now, 1,425 of them are thoroughly bought and paid for. So what's the credibility of their findings? If they write something or try and convince you or put a publication out, what is the actual credibility behind that? What are they ultimately trying to get? They're ultimately trying to get you to buy their food. So the information that you're going to get presented with from such people is going to be very slanted towards them wanting you to do a particular action. Okay, so just always be aware of what the source of the information that comes from, and then always look at it with a pinch of salt. Typically common sense will tend to work it all out. If it doesn't sit well, then it's probably not true. Okay, alright, so we've grown up in pretty much an allopathic world. From a very young age we get dragged to the doctors when we've got a headache or an upset tummy, and that's known as an allopathic approach. So it's a one-size-fits-all, where you treat the disease, not the person. So if you arrive at the doctors with a headache, you will get a painkiller or an aspirin or something like that. That's versus the holistic mode, which is the only other mode on the planet, where either allopathic, one size fits all, or a holistic approach, an individualized approach. So we treat the person, not the disease. So yes, we do care whether you have a headache or not, but we're not so much interested in giving you a pill. We're more interested in asking you questions and, like I said before, being a bit of a health detective and working out why you have a headache. Did you drink any water today? Maybe you've had too many coffees. You might have a sore neck being at your computer all day. You might be overly stressed and breathing through your chest rather than diaphragmatic breathing. There's many reasons to a headache. So rather than give you a pill that's just going to land you, yes, it'll fix your problem, but you'll end up back at our office again in a week or two with another headache, and then we have to give you another pill. So you're relying on that approach, and it's not the best approach. you can actually bounce around in that allopathic one-size-fits-all approach for most of your life and actually destroy your health in the process. So our advice to you is to get an individualized approach, get someone who actually cares about you, treat the person, treat yourself and not the disease. So understand why perhaps you might have a headache. Okay, so if we take that concept further and what we're used to, we come up with a saying that having a headache is not an aspirin deficiency, but yet that's what we're all led to believe. And you can see the polyp there with the headache. He thinks that's absolutely shocking in terms of thinking that, but that's our natural way of thought. We don't tend to delve deeper, we go for that magic little pill. Okay, so the answer to permanent weight loss is you basically have to balance your body chemistry. When you look good on the inside, you will look fantastic on the outside. You have to maximize your metabolic efficiency, so that means you've got to work out what your body likes and what your body hates. That's in terms of food, sleep patterns, diet, happiness, all the stuff we looked at on slide 1. Okay, and you have to restore function. Basically, you've got 100 trillion cells in your body. If we counted one cell at a time, it would take you about 3 million years to count all the cells in the body, so it's an unfathomable amount. From those cells, they make up tissues. The tissues make up organs and glands, eventually subsystems like your cardiovascular system, etc., and then eventually you, the organism. So it starts deep at the cellular level to restore function and achieve metabolic efficiency. Not many people understand that, but you keep your cells happy, you will keep you happy. Okay, so we can see what happens with a little bit of imbalance here on the inside of the body. On the right hand side of this, you'll see a thyroid type woman. We've heard about body type diets and the like in the news recently. Well, this is a thyroid type body type. Okay, so on the right, she's quite healthy. All her sister cells, tissues, organs, glands, subsystems, and her, the entity itself, is all quite healthy on the right. But if we start to lose a little bit of internal balance, you end up with a figure looking like that on the left. Okay, so no amount of cutting calories or dieting or exercising like crazy will achieve that, get you back to the right. It will actually probably keep you in the left and spinning around on that cycle. So the idea with all this is to get balance. Okay, so where do you start? Well, that's obviously a good question because there's so many approaches out there. I think last time I put the word diet into Google, it came back with something like 39 million results. So just way too much even for a normal person to have a look at, and even most practitioners struggle as well. So the answer is to find out what is right for you. After all, we're only trying to solve your problems, not the whole world's at once. We start with one person and then we move on. So you've got to find out what is right for you. Okay, so point number 1 is be aware that there are different metabolisms. Ancestrally speaking, in the past, there was about 15 tribes located around the planet before we had the modern day travel. A best example of those, the two opposites, are the Eskimo and the Quechua Indian. The Eskimo ate predominantly saturated fats and meats. Okay, make most doctors scared to death if you're going to eat that way, but yet extremely healthy people. The opposite to that were the Quechua Indians. They largely, due to climate and location and stuff like that, they largely ate fruits and vegetables and grains. So it's the old modern day equivalent of the Eskimo following the Atkins diet or the Quechua Indian following the Pritikin. But how do you know what's right for you? Are you an Eskimo, are you a Quechua Indian, or are you some other of those 15 tribes ancestrally speaking? The other thing, back to the allopathic approach, if your blood plasma levels and your local GP, if you're getting like general nutritional markers done like magnesium, calcium and all that sort of stuff, and you're trying to detect them in the blood to work out whether you've got the right levels, it's going to be a little bit too late when the blood's showing low calcium, for instance, because your bones and your teeth will be just so brittle at that time. Blood plasma levels are one of the most stable markers in the body. It's often way too late when you start to show problems in those markers. So just be aware of that, that if you get those annual checkups with your doctor, just make sure that although he's telling you everything is right, maybe have a look a little bit deeper and see what's going on behind the scenes. Okay, so realize that there's different nutritional requirements for different individuals. Okay, back to that ancestral heritage, whereabouts are you ancestrally from? So that will largely determine your DNA, which gets passed down through the generations, and therefore will largely tell you what you need to be eating and stuff like that. Okay, so there's different oxidation rates. If we look at that Eskimo example again, they needed lots of proteins and fats. In other words, to fuel their cells of their body, compared to the Quechua Indians following the more Pritikin, the fruit and vegetable style diet, which needs lots of light fuels like carbohydrates and stuff like that to actually get their cells burning energy properly. There's a whole heap of range in between that, and we can find out exactly what all that's about through the process of metabolic typing. It tells you exactly the quantities of proteins, fats and oils that you should be eating for you personally. Okay, there's different endocrine or hormonal systems. We've heard that again in the press recently with body type diets. Again, another indication of what you should be eating, but not the whole story, but it definitely does help. Okay, so one of the examples we saw on that picture before was the thyroid type woman, and what happens to her when she's out of balance and what happens when she's in balance. But there's 3 other types as well: the adrenal, the gonadal and the pituitary. Okay, then we also have varying blood types. So you've probably heard of the blood type diets in the past. Yes, a little bit of a waste of time. Some people get results, some people don't. Probably only 1 in 20 do. It's not necessarily the ideas that they're proposing behind the blood type diet of why it doesn't necessarily work. But again, with metabolic typing, we take not only your blood type, but we take your body type, we take your oxidation rates, we take a whole heap of other factors into account as well in the questionnaire to determine exactly what you should be eating. Okay, and then there's also varying climate. So if you tend to be up near the poles or in a upper latitude area, then you would probably need more proteins and fats, because that's actually what keeps you warm. If you're down on the equator, you could probably handle a lot more fruits and vegetables, because it's a lot warmer and you will tend to burn those off. So again, it comes back to ancestral heritage of whereabouts you were first located and what your DNA is recorded and passed down during those times. Various nutritional things change with age. Ethnic origin, since we've discussed, seasons. So even if you're living in Sydney, for instance, you need more proteins and fats over winter. More fruits and vegetables are allowed over summer. Okay, so there's a lot of variabilities that come into it. Okay, the basic trend, bud, when we get rid of all that information, is that women tend to eat light with an emphasis on simple carbohydrates, while men eat protein. Okay, so women do try very hard with their diet. They're always trying to get the body shape that they want the health that they want, and they tend to think through mass marketing and media that simple carbohydrates, fruits and vegetables is going to give them those goals. While men, on the other hand, tend to be a little bit lazier, and they'll just eat protein because it fills them up and it's easy. Now we have both sick women and sick men, but it doesn't necessarily mean that men should be eating protein. In fact, a lot of men that I've metabolically typed actually have coming out carbohydrate types, which means they should be eating a bit lighter. A lot of the women that I'm testing that are eating predominantly carbohydrates are actually should be eating heavier in terms of proteins and fats to solve their health problems and start to stabilize their weight. So very interesting stuff. Okay, so here's a diet plan once we metabolically type you. It's basically branched out from top left: meats, poultry, seafood, legumes, beverages, middle column: dairy and eggs, nuts and seeds, etc., etc., down to fruits on the bottom left, oils and fats in the middle on the bottom, and herbs and spices. Now the color coding here is the green is everything. If we metabolically typed you and you came out in this diet plan, green is everything that I want you to eat. So they're all your perfect ideal foods. They'll last you a long time between meals. They'll make you happy. They'll make you your weight starts to stabilize. They'll give you good energy, the good thought patterns, the whole lot. The second best food items on there are the ones in black bold. Okay, so they're quite good for your metabolism as well if you're this type. But then we start getting into problems when you see the italics. So let's go on to say nuts and seeds in the middle there on the left. Now cashews, chestnuts, pine nuts, poppy seeds and sunflower seeds, you see there in italics, are not good seeds for this person. Yet up in the green, Brazil nuts, fiber, hazelnuts, flax, hickory nuts, etc. are perfect nuts for them. So there's just no way of working this out without actually getting metabolically typed first. If we go across to the vegetables, you can see that there's a whole heap in the italics and red that is simply not suited to this person's metabolism. In fact, I've used this example diet plan because this is actually my metabolic type, and I can tell you, if you see on the vegetable thing there, third down on the red strike through, you've got garlic. Now if I have garlic powder or anything like that in my meal and I have enough of it, I absolutely feel terrible. So I've tested this metabolic typing. I've done some pretty crazy things with it, like a whole plate of broccoli, which is a red strike through for me, compared to say a whole plate of bananas down the bottom left, which is is a green food, which is I'm allowed, and the difference is like chalk and cheese. I can lose all my energy, I can lose all my motivation, and my thinking starts to go foggy when I'm eating these italics and red strike through foods. If I'm eating the green and the black ones, I feel fantastic. So this diet plan gets rid of all the guesswork for you, gets rid of all the nonsense, and it tells you exactly what you should be eating and what you shouldn't. So absolutely worth its weight in gold to find out your metabolic type. Okay, so if you don't know your metabolic type at present, and we can see that if you're a female, you're tending towards too many carbohydrates. We can see on this chart in the top left the short-term responses that will happen. So if you eat carbohydrates and you eat too many of them for what your metabolism actually requires, you might suffer from things such as headache, anxiety, you don't feel satisfied, you get hungry again quickly, you may have certain cravings for fat or protein, or even more sugar in some cases. You might have a jumpy mind, ADHD type behavior, you'll feel tired but wired, maybe jittery, nervous energy, highs and lows. Now if you eat too many carbohydrates for your metabolism on the long term, on the right you can see exactly what will happen to you metabolically speaking. So you'll get an exaggerated stress response to carbohydrates constantly stimulating your metabolism. That could end up in things such as depression, pimples, constipation, toxicity, insulin resistance, diabetes that we mentioned previously. You could have headaches, neck and shoulder pain just from eating too many carbohydrates, low back pain, poor sleep patterns, autonomic dysregulation, which can be just about anything, adrenal stress, which are your adrenal glands and your energy production, and immune suppression. So you might have cold sores or be getting colds and flus and stuff like that regularly. Okay, so if you think that's bad and we try and swap it around to the other way and we're going to eat a lot of proteins and fats, then again we have some pretty nasty short-term responses. You may feel lethargic or sleepy, dull or depressed mood, mentally sluggish or slow. You could have a heavy gut following meals. You feel full but perhaps still hungry. You may have uncontrollable sweet cravings after that meal, or you may crave coffee or tea. Now again, if you eat too many proteins for your metabolism, on the long term you'll end up with sort of low-level disease. You'll have autonomic dysfunction, which can affect anything across your body, depression, obesity, toxicity, low energy, you may crave sweets again, poor response to exercise, which is an interesting one, particularly aerobic, rapid aging, which we definitely all don't want, hormonal dysregulation, abnormal blood pressure, adrenal fatigue, and again neck shoulder pain. Interesting that we can have similar responses that the body spits out based on whether we're eating too much carbohydrates or too much proteins. Basically the story is that the body just doesn't like what you're actually giving it. And again, headache, low back pain, ill health. Okay, so you can see from this chart it's pretty important to find out exactly the levels of proteins, fats and carbohydrates that your metabolism requires. Otherwise you'll end up with some of these more nastier types of symptoms which we could all do without. Okay, so the other thing is, when are you eating? When I first sit down with a lot of clients, they're skipping breakfast, or they're skipping lunch, or they're having lunch late, they're going for hours and hours and hours without eating food. You can see through this diagram here that if you skip breakfast, you tend to eat heavier as you're going through the day. You'll probably end up with a weight like an upside down triangle, the right way up triangle. Now if you eat regularly, the one on the right, a great meal strategy, you have a good hearty breakfast, that's when you need it the most. You're eating during the day pretty regularly, not in large amounts but just regularly, and you'll end up with a nice great figure as you see there. So it's critically important not to go longer than 4 or 5 hours without eating. Again, that will upset your insulin response and send a lot of stuff going through fat storage. It's critical to have breakfast. Remember, it's break the fast. That's what breakfast means. So if you don't break that fast, you will go for about 18 to 20 hours without eating anything, and that is definitely not good for your metabolism or your weight loss. So eat small meals regularly, definitely have breakfast, and you'll find that you'll be on a winning path. Okay, so you are also what you eat. This is a nice little diagram I like showing clients. So you can see in 1900, we'll talk back to your great-great-grandmother, there wasn't that much. She had quite a good food supply that was getting delivered to her or down at the local markets, and that wasn't that full of toxins or chemicals or anything like that. But fast forward just 100 years and you can see that your liver's there on the left. and it just can't handle the onslaught coming from all the toxins and chemicals not only in our food but also in our environment. Don't forget, your liver is a large part of whether you're producing energy or not, or whether you're detoxifying. So the clearer your liver, the better your health will actually be. So we go about teaching you all the stuff you'll see in that bottom one on the right, exactly the sources of toxins and stuff that's going to actually upset your body. So critical information to know. Okay, so what are you really consuming that you are not getting told? We see ads on TV all the time with Coles and Woolies, the fresh food people. Yet when Current Affair tests their apples, they're 6 to 9 months old. So what's exactly going on out there? Okay, well, did you know that there are currently 35,000 chemicals in your food supply? These chemicals were not there 100 years ago. They have been thrown in to make it more texture, more pleasurable, more tasty, to last on the shelf for longer, to be stored for long periods of time, to make it stable for transport, every single thing, but except it's not designed for your health. It is designed for logistical efficiency, basically saving the food suppliers money. It has nothing to do with your health, unfortunately, and that's what we're seeing in society's declining health. It's coming directly from our food supply. Okay, the other thing you didn't know about your food is it actually gets irradiated. Okay, so irradiation is a large part of our common food supply, and that's basically shoving all your food into a high-powered microwave for 1 second, and that supposedly, according to the experts, makes it sterile and with no bacteria or dangerous fungi or anything like that, and safe for you to eat. I don't think God somehow designed that one, did he? Our food, if grown properly, prepared properly, stored properly, it's our lifeblood. It's not any danger by any means. So to irritate our food is just crazy in my eyes. Be aware of heat, so cooking and its effect on proteins and enzymes. Okay, so proteins handle up to about probably 40 degrees temperature, same to enzymes. So the trick is to slow cook stuff and cook it at a low temperature, and you'll keep all the nutrients in there when you do decide to cook a food item. Okay, then recently we've got genetically modified foods. That is just basically playing God by the food scientists. Okay, so I would absolutely applaud you to please stay away from genetically modified foods, because they are unstudied and you will basically be the guinea pig on what actually happens. Okay, so they're extremely dangerous. Please stay away from them. Okay, food fortification and non-foods. I see this a lot. We get ads on TV like Brand Power and all that sort of stuff telling us that this food's fantastic because we've added vitamin A, E, zinc and all that sort of stuff. I would like you to stay away from those foods, okay? I'll tell you a little bit of a story about, say, Special K or cornflakes or something like that. It's fortified, so it's actually sprayed with synthetic vitamins. So that flake that you see, whether it's a cornflake or a Special K, as I mentioned, if it's sprayed with synthetic vitamins, it's sprayed just before it goes in the oven to cook the actual grains. Now, there's no study on those synthetic vitamins, and basically they're not picked up by the body very well. They actually cause a bit of a toxicity issue because they're not like nature. They're synthetic. They're made in a lab. They're delivered by the truckload very cheaply. So it's been a bit of a con from the food manufacturers saying, oh look, we'll fortify this food with A, C, Z and zinc and all that sort of stuff, and it actually makes the consumers buy more, but they've got to put some of those vitamins and minerals back in it to actually still call it a food. So I like to call them non-foods, and they won't do anything for your health. So if you've got your cupboard full of a whole heap of fortified foods, then you really need to find a better food source. We can talk about that more a little bit later. Okay, and then we've got a whole heap of canned and frozen goods. So these have been around for many a decade now. They largely came about, canning and freezing, from World Wars in the past, where we were trying to make sure that our troops had a reliable and consistent food supply. Unfortunately, canned foods came BPA, Teflon linings and the like. Frozen goods with the interaction of plastics, especially around meats and oils, will actually leach into the food, and they're known as xenoestrogens, so they're the hormone mimickers in your body. Remember how we talked about hormones are the actual key to weight loss, or as a large part of the key? You don't want to be introducing a whole heap of hormone mimicking agents such as xenoestrogens through your diet that will upset your internal hormonal imbalance. Okay, there's lots of study, lots of research on the internet from about all this stuff, so it's pretty much a known science now. Okay, the rule is, if it wasn't here 5,000 years ago, or you can't pronounce the items on the label, don't eat it. That's going to be pretty hard in some circumstances, but with most of the food items you can actually live pretty well by under that rule. That's where the paleo diet comes from and why it's so trendy and stuff like that. Again, it's a good answer to the question, but it's not the entire answer. There's much more to it. Metabolic typing, for instance, is actually the paleo diet on hyperdrive. Not only it goes back to those old food times and the right foods and nutritious foods, but it also gives you the right foods of what you should be eating, which can be completely different to the person sitting or standing next to you. Okay, so just go back in time, try and eat what your great-great-grandmother ate in those days. Avoid canned, frozen, fortified, all of the above. Frozen isn't too bad, just be aware that make sure you get it sort of local produce as best you can. Minimize the time that it's actually still stored in that, so you get it out when at home and you put it in glass or whatever you need to do to limit the amount of effects of those toxins coming out into your food. Okay, this is an interesting one. If you actually stop through and get a strawberry milkshake at your local takeaway or McDonald's, or strawberry ice cream or anything like that at the grocery store, this is all the stuff that's in it that you won't see on the label. So this is known as a GRAS list. GRAS stands for generally regarded as safe. Don't you love that comment? Generally regarded as safe. Now I can tell you that all these items on that is not particularly safe for your metabolism. In fact, that picture that we showed about the liver, it just pierces your liver off no end. So this is the stuff that's not on the label and that the food companies do not want you to know about, but by all means it is actually in the food. So you go back 5,000 years and you won't have any of that sort of stuff going through your body. If you do, just try and limit the amount that you're having it. And we've all seen that thing on McDonald's with Super Size Me. He virtually ate there for a month, and the doctor said if you continue to do that, you are going to die. So that's all the chemicals that he's loaded up in his body that wasn't written on the label, but is actually having a dramatic effect on that poor chap's metabolism. Okay, so be aware, if it's not on the label, it can still be quite bad. Okay, but on to exercise. So just be aware it doesn't take a second longer to do an effective exercise than it does to do an ineffective exercise. Being a personal trainer for many years, I've always picked up on people just doing absolutely crazy exercises that have zero crossover to weight loss or zero crossover to their proper functioning through everyday tasks that they have to do, lifting shopping bags, putting the kids in the back of the car, if you're the male partner, you might be working out in the garden. I see some crazy stuff in terms of PT, trying to, again, like I said before, bash that weight off you with a stick. Okay, so exercise should be based on your individual's ability. Okay, so if you're 90, do we really want to be squatting 3 times your body weight? If you're a young kid, 5 or 6, again, do you really need to be doing that? Your muscle mechanics, I test a lot of girls. They like nice shapely legs, so I always test their leg mechanics and see what muscles are firing, which ones aren't. Most girls I've tested are what's known as quad dominant, which means that the front of their legs takes most of the load and most of the movement, while stuff like their bum and back of their legs, their hamstrings, are not particularly firing that well. You'll see many girls come in to me, I have seen in the past, saying that I've been exercising like crazy and I still can't get a nice shaped butt. When I do a little bit of muscle mechanics on them and have a look at what's going on, they're doing the wrong exercises and they have to do a few other things to actually get that nice shaped butt. So we work all that out for you. And your current physiological load. So if you were up late last night, you might have been having an argument with the kids, you might have skipped dinner or had it late, you're up till 1 o'clock in the morning, you've got your exercise session the next day, it's probably not a good idea to go for a 10-kilometre hike. Now you'll probably be walking out that gate thinking, well, I really don't feel like this, I guess you'll be tired and stuff, but you'll bash that weight off you with a stick and you'll more than likely go ahead for the 10k run. It's not doing your body any favours whatsoever. So you have to base it on your physiological load, or actually how stressed you are in the inside of your body. Once you put those 3 things together, wow, don't the results show. So we get in all that sort of stuff. Okay, here you can see with movement. So this is basically, it's not all about going for a jog or getting smashed by a personal trainer or anything like that. It's actually, there's about 5 or 6 things that you really need to put together. You have to be flexible. You need some energizing exercises. So not only are those big ticket items that are pulling a lot of energy out of you, but there's a series of exercises that you can do to gather more energy across various organs and glands and cells in your body. Core conditioning is a big one. If you have sore knees, ankles, elbows, lower back or anything like that, it's probably because your core's not functioning functioning properly. You might have been a physios and chiros in the past, but be aware that there is an inner core and an outer core unit. Most people's inner core units aren't firing particularly well, which means their spine isn't that well stabilized and they get these sore shoulders, knees, backs and stuff like that. Okay, there's functional exercises. So move how we were designed to move. That's pull, squat, bend, lunge, push, twist and gait, which is walk. They're functional exercises where you're using every single muscle from, say, your right ankle all the way through to your left wrist and everything in between. We don't tend to want to see people isolating particularly muscle groups like bicep curls in a machine, or any machine work is generally not good for you where the body is supported by a bench or a seat or something. So try and do most of your exercise either standing up or on a fitball or using free weights and stuff like that, and you'll absolutely triple your results. Okay, special considerations. Again, we see like focus on body shape, not body weight. Train, but don't overtrain, like what we said. Be aware of the interactions of medical drugs. Don't overuse aerobic exercise. Believe it or not, we're not basically designed to run long distances. We are meant for short spurts and stuff like that overall. Keep in mind that less is more, even though everyone tries to make more is less. Flatten abs after pregnancy, there's a couple of considerations to that. Overcoming back pain, back to that inner core unit, and then putting it all together. So we can actually design you a program that will get you the results if you're interested, but that's all the stuff that you need to put into that program to get the results that you want. Okay, so just be aware that we are superior animals. We are top of the food chain. We are designed to live in the wild, away from doctors, therapists, and fancy gadgets. Follow the principles of 5,000 years ago and you will see a dramatic change in your health. Okay, so we might not be realizing that, but that's pretty much logic and common sense, isn't it? Once you do get healthy, you'll find that you'll never walk into a doctor's office again. But you've got the tools, you've got the education, you've got the know-how to go about solving your own headaches, solving your own lower back pains, solving your tiredness, and you understanding the reasons why they were occurring in the first place. That's basically putting health back in your hands, which I think is the best place it should be. Okay, so rules for success. Just to sum up this quick presentation, thoughts. Are your thoughts positive? Okay, so we started a little bit on that. Do you like your friends? Do you like where you live? Do you like your partner? Are you happy with your life? If not, go about changing the things that you don't like, the things that you can't change, just accept and adapt to. Okay, so that'll keep your thoughts a little bit less stressed. Breathing's a big one. Are you chest breathing or are you diaphragmatic breathing? Next time you get cut off in traffic while you're driving your car or you have an argument with someone, just notice how your breathing pattern changes at that time. You'll go to a chest breathing type scenario where you're literally picking up your whole chest to create the air volume into your lungs, rather than diaphragmatic breathing, which is the pressure difference and natural deep belly breathing. Okay. Hydration. Most clients will come and see when I first analyse their health and their lifestyle and all that sort of stuff is simply not drinking enough. The only beverage the human body is designed for is water. Okay, and it can't be tap water, it has to be high quality filtered water, so make sure you're adequately hydrated. The moment your cells get dehydrated, you will have major problems at a cellular level and therefore a metabolic level. Okay, food, the fourth one, we've got into that. You know, what's your ancestral heritage? Where did you first originate from on the planet all those hundreds of generations ago? Are you an Eskimo or a Quechua Indian or somewhere in between? And what's the quality of those foods? Is your liver sitting there happy as Larry, or is it overcome with all the toxins, with those 35,000 chemicals currently in our processed food environment? Exercise and movement, the last one we just went through. Make sure it's a personalized approach based on your ability, your physiological load, and your actual muscle dynamics. And then, not many clients I meet, but eventually they do, not getting enough rest or enough downtime. So that's on the right of that chart, you see Dr. Quiet there on the upper right. Rest is the best stress metabolizer on the planet. It will immediately balance all your hormones. It will help restore and bring energy back into your body. It allows for repair and regeneration, and it keeps you young. So please try not to skip those critical hours of sleep. During the night, you will at least want to be getting 7 to 8 hours worth of sleep, and quality sleep. We've got lots of tips and tricks on how to actually get a good night's sleep. Putting some of the things you've seen in this presentation into effect should start having you sleep better already. Okay, so that's pretty all the things you have to look at when it comes to health. Possibly all those things you might never hear your GP or your doctor talk about, but I'm telling you, those are the issues that either make your body happy or they make it upset. Okay, so very important stuff. Okay, so please realize you are never going to look good on the outside until you start to look good on the inside. Okay, we tend to try and chase our looks and our the way we are from the outside in, but it's much better and actually better permanently to do it from the inside out. So again, keep those cells happy, you'll keep the tissues happy, you'll keep your organs and glands happy, you'll keep your subsystems happy, and then eventually you as the organism itself will be happy. Okay, so look good on the inside and you look fantastic on the outside. Okay, and above all, even though at times you might feel quite stressed, just keep smiling with it. We're always here to answer any questions what you have. If you have any frustration or stress, or you want to know more information about the truth about an actual topic or subject, please email us or just jump on the phone. We're more than happy to help. Okay, I just want to introduce you to a bit of a resource thing for you, and that's my website, theholisticlifestylecenter.com. There's lots of blogs and articles and videos. For instance, there's a recent article on how to undo your metabolic damage, as well as a recent one on Angelina Jolie as well. So you'll find lots of these things as well, with her double mastectomy and our thoughts on that. There's a couple of health programs for you. The best place to start is to have a look at Unlock More from Life. That basically puts this entire presentation into a step-by-step guide that you can follow from the comfort and privacy of your own home. You just read it like a novel, start from the first word, do all the action steps. 29 steps later, you won't even recognize yourself. So there's also all those resources and tips and tricks and articles and videos and programs and methodologies all contained on the website. Okay, so we've got all that stuff up there for you guys. Alright, well look, that's fantastic. I'm glad you could join us today. I'll be going about answering questions and answers by email after this. We've got a lot of questions there, a little bit too many to go through right now, so I'll answer each of those personally by email. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Alright, fantastic. Thank you.